everybody, I hope you all have an amazing day. We have a special little episode because today and tomorrow as well, I have been playing at a weekend-long tournament. I'm playing in the major, which I believe is under 1900. Could be under 1950. But yeah, so I've had 3 games today, all classical games, an hour 20 plus 10 on the clock, so the games could theoretically go on for 3 hours, which is a lot of chess, 3 games in one day. So forgive me if I look, sound / am tired. Yeah. So I'm showing you 2 of my games today, rather than doing our regular Road to Master video. And keep you guys updated. So, we'll start off with the scores. 3 games, I won 1. I won 1 game. I was very, very happy with the game I did win. One of the games was a bit of a stinker, and then the other game was a really enjoyable game as well. So, we'll get into the 2 good ones, and hopefully have a good time. This one, particularly, I am proud of. So, let's get on. So, this is against an 1845. I have white, sorry. And I've played this guy before, and I knew he played the Sicilian. And before we've played the delayed Alapin, which is a very interesting opening. You should definitely give it a go. But I didn't really fancy that. It didn't particularly get me a good attack going. I got a good position out of our last game, but I didn't think it was right for this circumstance. In the first round, you want to come out swinging. So I went for a Grand Prix. If you've been watching the channel for a bit, recently I have been starting to play this again. I'm really enjoying it. Still need to get a bit more grip of the theory, but it turned out well today. I think this is the first time I've used it in a standard game. So yeah, it bodes well for the future, I guess. Oh, oh, spoilers. Anyway, Grand Prix. He went e6 going into the French Sicilian. And I believe the move here is actually bishop f5, b5, sorry. No, apparently knight f3 is the best. Amazing. In fact, let's go into a review. By the way, I got an 89.1% accuracy here versus a 76.1, 2350 versus 1800, blah, blah, blah. So a6 is a good move against the Grand Prix because you're killing the activity of this bishop, which wants to come to one of these 2 squares. So you're sort of forcing the bishop to do this awkward fianchetto. And play d3, which kills a lot of your usual plans, but it's a system I'm sort of familiar with because I play the King's Indian attack as well. So I'm not unhappy with this, and it is computery. They go for the fianchetto line, which is not ideal, but I think puts up an interesting fight. You can go knight e7 and still keep a lot of pressure on the center with this knight and this bishop here. I think is really interesting. I continue with my plan. I knew here, I looked up the game before, I knew what I was going to play. I knew here it would want d4 as a move. But if you're playing the Grand Prix, play the Grand Prix. This is more like an open Sicilian with f4, really. So I decided to go with the fianchetto, which is still even. You know, it's 0.5 of a pawn difference. And here I made an interesting decision. I wouldn't usually do this. To be honest, this is not a move I want to make. It's the best move, and the reason I sort of thought of it was because I've been watching some of Daniel Naroditsky's videos in a speedrun, and he recommended whenever you get the chance, play e5 and get a knight onto d6. So that was my long time goal, but of course they can play the move d5. And I have a big decision to make here. Do I en passant and allow queen takes, or do I push d4 and allow a ton of pressure on this d pawn here? If I take en passant, yes, it gets rid of a lot of our weaknesses in the center, and we can potentially get some development with tempos. But there's nothing solid. You know, the open file, you're going to play e3, you're going to get the bishops out, and it's going to be an okay game. But it's not particularly what I want. I played e5 to try and kill this bishop as well. this bishop's staring at a brick wall, and it sort of stays like that for the rest of the game. So this is why I went with my idea of playing d4. Now, there's a lot of things you have to calculate here. Luckily, with the first game, I had all the energy to actually calculate it, and I felt it was okay. And the computer agrees with me. Thank the Lord. So, apparently the move is knight e2, which is very interesting. Getting the other knight to attack this. I just took straight away, because why not? And luckily for us, our opponent went for knight e7, which isn't a bad move at all. I thought the critical line was knight takes, queen takes, and then go knight e7. So you've got something to hit with the knight coming to c6. Apparently not the best move, though. The move is apparently knight to h6, which is absolutely insane. I don't even know what that's thinking about considering doing. Don't ask me. And then I didn't want to take because you're giving them the thing. And I wanted to play c3. So I came up with the move knight e2. Happy with that. They didn't want to take either because they didn't want to give me the setup I wanted. So they kept developing. I castled, which is another sort of scary thing I had to consider. Because there is pins on the king once I castle. You know, like with a queen b6, there is a pin that I need to consider. And if I get my bishop to e3 to stop that, then the queen could potentially come to b2. So I had to be very, very careful about that. Again, they didn't go for the critical line, which is not bad at all. It's still practically even. And we managed to get c3, so I'm feeling a lot better here. I think I'm still fighting for a draw. Not fighting for a draw. I think it's going to naturally go to a draw because I've not got much of a push here. And a lot of their attempts at crashing through on the queen side sort of fizzle out, especially when they're sort of playing down a piece as well. So I think this is just an okay position. They castle. Slight inaccuracy, but still it's saying 0.6, you know. And we finally get the bishop out to e3. Stop the pin. I'm not particularly worried about b2. I can always go rook b1 if absolutely necessary. Or like a queen c2 potentially, but there's some problems with knight to b4 ideas. Or queen c1 if I ever push this. Something along those lines. Then they go bishop h6. This was an interesting one. I didn't see this, to be honest. The natural way to get this bishop developed is to go to f8. Because there is absolutely no risk of this being trapped. For example, I'll make a few moves. Shuffles. If they're not careful. Sorry. We'll go there. If they are not careful, here we go. This bishop's getting trapped behind here at h8, and it's literally never coming out of here at all. Like, we're completely even on material, and the computer's saying plus 2.6. Just because they're basically playing without a bishop for the entire game. And even if they go for like a break, let's say we waste a move and go like this, they're still not going anywhere with this bishop ever. So I think I've got an opportunity here with bishop to h6. I need to push these pawns though, which I'm struggling to do because there is this weakness on f5. And because there is still a lot of tension in the center surrounding these knights and this pawn and this pawn. The c4 square specifically, I think, is a big one. So I've got to be a bit careful. I start to shuffle my pieces a bit. And this isn't like aimless shuffling. I am trying to get an attack going on the king side the best I can. Ideally, I would like maybe the bishop up, the king up, and the rook across, something like that. With a h4, h5, I can push the g pawn as well if I want. The queen can potentially come in on the light squares as well. There is an attack to be had. There's a lot of work to do though. And then my opponent starts getting their pieces more on the queen side as well. So while I'm pushing towards the king side, they're going towards the queen side, which makes sense, you know. I do have weaknesses here, and there is something that needs to be exploited. This is a good move. I really like this because it's hitting c4. c4 is really annoying for me. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to drop this knight all the way back to d2 as well. Slight inaccuracy, But I think, to be honest, it covers the c4 square quite well. And I'm not particularly worried about knight f5 because the bishop drops back to f2. And everything's still quite tight. You know, it's a bit cramped around my king. But I don't see any immediate problems at all. They go with bishop b4. Another really annoying move. Something that's making me act. Not only is it pinning the knight to the rook, it's also putting another square, another defender, attacker, on the c4 square, which is really, really annoying. Yeah, I don't think there's much I can do about this right now, other than pushing pawns, but then these are getting weak. So I just try to go all out, to be honest. I'm like, you know what? In for a penny, in for a pound. They're either going to crush me on the queen side, or I'm going to get an attack going on the king side. So we might as well go all out. And I push g4. They bring another piece, and this is a scary piece. This is the queen coming in. If the knight comes in now, so I went h4, by the way. If the knight comes in now, we've lost it again. Where are we? There we go. If the knight comes in now and knight takes, this looks very, very scary. I don't think I would be happy with this. Apparently it's still good for me, but you can see things potentially getting out of hand here. The only good thing for us here is that this bishop's still sort of locked up. Anyway, we push h4. Again, not the best move, but it gets our point across that way we have threats, you know. And I think it needed to be done at some point as well. Rook fd8. I didn't see this one at all. I completely get it. You want to get the escape square for this bishop on f8. And you want to potentially reroute it over to c5 as well, hitting the king. Completely makes sense to me. I just didn't see it. The computer says it's good. Yeah. I think maybe you could be a bit more urgent with like a knight c4 potentially. I'm not sure. Apparently an inaccuracy. But yeah, I think this is a perfectly logical move and makes a lot of sense. And a bit annoying, to be honest. I finally go rook f2, get rid of this pin, and potentially get this rook over to h2 at some point as well to attack the king. I was quite happy with that. And then they sort of backtracked a bit, did our opponent. They moved this knight back to c6. And I get not wanting to move this knight, because if I ever push this, then you have a hole on f5 that you're able to work yourself into, especially with this bishop not having the f2 square to retreat to anymore. So yeah, they retreated. And I did not want to let them get d4. That was my main priority at this point. I can't let them have d4. If they get d4, our king's too weak and the position opens up too much. With like the weak f4 pawn as well. I'm not happy. So I go knight d4, plug the hole, and they take. I take back with the bishop. Apparently you take back with the pawn, which doesn't seem right to me at all. You're just asking for an invasion with the queen and the rook. I took with the bishop. And then they dropped the bishop back. I think the reason they dropped the bishop back was to allow this knight in without the threat of a4. Because if you do this straight away, a4 is a potential threat. But I think knight takes works. And then the bishop comes back. Which I think is fine. But it looks scary allowing a4 with a tempo. So they go back, and now it's important to note that the bishop's not blocking in any of their rooks as well. The rooks are connected, and the bishop can come back anytime it wants. I go bishop f1. I take this opportunity while the bishop isn't there to go bishop f1 and just claim this square. Stop it being annoying. I know they're looking potentially at b5, so I'm thinking of a4 ideas to try and nullify this attack, not let them get b4 if I can help it. They go knight c6, hitting my bishop once again. And I really want to go knight f3. But unfortunately, that would hang the f-pawn because it's disconnecting the rook from the pawn. So I have to go knight b3 to cover the bishop. That's all it does, really. Takes, fine. And the bishop goes to e8. I get this. You don't want to let this happen with tempo. I understand. And you're potentially looking at coming in on the queen side as well. This rook potentially could be pinned to our king. So, yeah, good move, I think. And we finally get the h5 break that we've been begging for the whole game. They don't take. I think if they take, it's, yeah, it's not happy times for them, I don't think. Apparently that's a miss, though. You go here. That's insane. And if they take, then you go queen takes check. Wow, that's beautiful. And if they push... Sorry. If they push here... No. Sorry. If they push... I don't know how computers work. How do computers work? There we go. We push g4, apparently. Oh, and get the queen in on h5. That makes a lot of sense. And they can try. Yeah, but then we just take, right? Surely. Yeah, and open up the lines for our rook then. That's quite nice. Anyway, they push b5, which I think they had to do, really. Otherwise, you're getting crushed. You need these counter threats. You need the position to open up and attack my weak king. I take. Why would I not take? I'm trying to open up lines on the king side. And they have to take with the h-pawn. It's important they do, because if they take with the f-pawn, I've got this nasty little fork here, winning a bit of material. Not completely winning, but, you know, it's nice enough. These pawns are going to advance quickly as well. So they have to take with the h-pawn. And then I've got a decision to make. I've got to evaluate, is this threat scary? My conclusion that it was not. I think my threat is scarier. My threat of potentially f5, potentially queen f3, rook h2, potentially a bishop d3. I'm relatively happy with this. And I went for this queen f3 line, looking to go to h3, rook h2, and then mate on one of these two squares was my grand plan. And I think here, this is where my opponent really sort of slipped up. I think he was low on time, which always causes a lot of like annoying pressure. And it's really easy to mess these up when everything's hanging in a balance. You know, it's so scary for both of our kings. The computer somehow says it's even. But one small slip up from either player will be the end, basically. And I think this bishop move was just too slow. I'm not really sure what the idea was, to be honest, because you're sort of blocking in your queen. Maybe you're trying to get escape squares for your king. But yeah, and then they move it back to b7 as well. Again, I'm not particularly sure. Personally, I thought b4 was a good move. Or an interesting move, at least. And it's saying that is the best. Just opening up lines for the queen to come in and start being annoying, basically. You know, this knight's now undefended as well. So maybe now you have like a bishop c5. Apparently not. Oh yeah, you take the pawn. And then you have potentially a bishop c5. So I think it's a lot more challenging. But, you know, it's still not easy for me. The computer says it's plus 2.4, but it's still very much not easy for me. We go with our plan of queen f3. Again, h3, sorry. Again, it's another inaccuracy, and you see the eval drop a bit there. And then we finally go rook h2. And this is where the madness begins. I'm threatening a mate on h8. So the only way to stop that is bishop g7. Now, unfortunately, this is not mating for us. The king has escape squares, and it's blocked by this annoying f-pawn. So I try just get more pieces into the action. I try go bishop d3. Potentially looking at check, and then bishop takes or something. And then king f8. A preemptive move, I think, which is good. Again, the computer's wanting b4, but that's a hard one to see when you're staring down the barrel of a queen and rook doubled up. I think this is a good move. Getting the king away, not giving me the h7 check. And this is where stuff gets crazy. I've noticed that the king and the queen are forkable by this knight, which is insane. Unfortunately, this pawn is covered by the f-pawn. How can we get rid of this f-pawn? Bishop takes g6. Yeah, I had no clue if this worked, to be honest. I I didn't see a reason it didn't work, but I also didn't concretely see it working out for me. So I just went for it. You know, like I said before, in for a penny, in for a pound. The queen goes to c5. Apparently, again, the best move is b4, which is crazy. I don't know what I would do here, to be honest. Yeah, I really have no clue. Maybe like a queen h5? No. Or maybe just drop the bishop back, even. Maybe just drop the bishop back. Apparently a good move. What's best? Rook b1. Wow. Crazy. I don't know how that works. Anyway, the queen goes to c5. And that's doing an annoying thing of pinning my knight to my king. However, the forking step is still on. You know, once they take this, I can still fork. So I kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I go rook f2, another brilliant move, still sacrificing the bishop. If they take, again, now because this is unpinned from my king, the fork is available. And there is a secondary idea of pushing f5 potentially. With the idea of f takes with some sort of discovered check with the rook or a pin on this f pawn. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. King e7 I really like as a move. Gets off this file and gets away from the fork. Covers this e pawn. And again, I have a decision to make. Is this bishop safe? Can I take this? Do I have to run away? Or can I do something else? And luckily I found this idea of queen h4 check. Apparently not the best move. The best move is queen h7, which doesn't seem very natural to me, to be honest. A bit insane, really. And apparently takes here. That's insane. King takes. Oh, and then you push f5. Yeah, which is where this rook's coming in strong on f2. Anyway, I threw in this check. I thought this was a good idea. The reason is, if the king goes this way, I'm taking this pawn. With the potential of taking this as well. I thought this looked pretty nice, to be honest. Yeah, you're just getting another pawn with check. And we're up 3 pawns at that point. What else was there? If the king goes here, again, that was what they played. King goes to f8. Then again, this forking threat is on. We can push an f5 if necessary. So the king goes to e8. And I have another decision to make. What am I doing with this bishop? Do I have any checks available? I don't, unfortunately. Can I take this pawn? That's what's running through my head. This is screaming at me. And I calculated that apparently I can. Apparently I can. If the king goes away, you have this same thing. The king ignores it. And then you've got the fork again. Apparently not even the best move. You go there for some reason. I'll never understand why. In fact, let us understand why, please. You just take the bishop, apparently. Okay. I would have taken the queen, personally. But computers are going to compute, I guess. Seems way more logical to me, to be honest. With the 3 passed pawns, seems completely winning. Anyway, the king takes. Then what next? You've got to throw in this check. You've got it. I mean, it's the only move. Again, they go there. We go there. And they can repeat this, but then f5 is coming. If they go there, then I'm taking the bishop, the queen blocks, and then I'm trading off the queens with some nasty passed pawns. I think is a good move. What else is there? If the king goes there, then I'll probably just take the bishop, right? Probably just take the bishop. Yeah. Yeah. And if the king goes there, again, you have the fork. I didn't calculate king to g8, which is what was played in the game. And I'm a bit scared here. Luckily, I have this idea of the fork. So I'm like, oh, I'll go ahead. Worst case, you know, I can go queen g5, potentially threaten a mate. I'm not sure if that works, if they move the rook up. So I went for it. Apparently not the best move. Apparently the move is f5 straight away. With, I'm guessing, f6 with some checks. Pawn takes, mating threats, stuff like that. We take the pawn with the fork. The queen goes to b6. Apparently, the best move is queen to e3, which is insane. Apparently, knight g5 with like a nice sort of mating threat there if you can ever get out of this pin. That's quite cool. Anyway, so we have this fork now after the queen's gone to b6. The queen's covering the f6 square. The queen's covering the rook. The queen's still pinning our rook as well. This is a really nice move. My first thought was knight to d8. And I'm like, that's quite tempting. You know, I get my material, I get pawns. I go up the exchange. For the sacrifice, I think I get 3 pawns. For the 3 pawns and a rook for 2 pieces, which is a great deal in my opinion, especially when the pawns are this scary. I went for knight takes g7. This, I was amazed I found this, to be honest, because I like one second earlier I would have grabbed the rook. I was like, hang on a second, if I ignore the exchange and just take the bishop here, are these not just like mating? How do you escape this? f5, and you can see immediately this queen's cutting off the squares, the rook's covering the pawn. It's very, very scary. It's very, very, very scary. And yeah, luckily our opponent went rook h8, which is probably the simplest move. Apparently you can go g8, and I think I just push f6 again. With like some mating threats, king there. Apparently you check as well. Keep checking. King there. There. And anyway, you can. This goes on. I guess. Oh, you win the rook at some point. Anyway, the king goes. The rook goes to h8, and this is just mating. After f6, queen takes, pawn takes. This wasn't played in the game, but same thing. King g8, then just queen g6, and it's just checkmating too. My opponent was gracious enough to play it out, and yeah, that was such a good game. The triple brilliancy. Wow. I was so proud of this. It's all the same tactic, really. Apart from bishop takes f7, which was cool. But the other two were sort of the same tactic, but free brilliancy. Yeah, you got to be happy with that. And it was a great way to start the first round. Unfortunately, I didn't have the same luck in the next games. So that was the first game. Let's get on to the next game we'll look at. So the next game we're going to look at today, it's my third game of the day. Completely knackered by this point. It's absolutely boiling today as well. I was white against an 1800 we've played before. I didn't remember what he played, but we had a good game, and we had another good game today as well. So I just went with my usual e4, ready for anything, to be honest. I thought maybe a French, but it turns out to be a Caro-Kann, which I was happy with. I love a good Caro-Kann. Pretty mainline theory. Knight f6, and then we took the pawn. Again, I take the pawn. Apparently the move is g3. Seems weird theory. I guess the bishop fianchetto against the no light squares is good. Makes sense. Probably should start doing that. We took anyway, and then played d4. So we're either going to try get some attack going with a fork here, or we're going to play super solid and go for a kingside attack. So yeah, if they played knight f6, knight c6, sorry, probably would have gone bishop e3. And apparently this is a line. That's insane. That's really, really insane. Sure. Anyway, they didn't. They played e6, which makes sense. We played bishop d3, like we said. Super solid. Get your pieces out, get castled, and go for a kingside attack. Knight c6, attacking the pawn again. Bishop e3. Apparently the move is knight e2, but it's fine, I think. Get the analysis bar on as well, actually. Still fine, yeah. And then queen b6. So queen b6 is doing two annoying things. It's hitting this pawn, and it's hitting this pawn. I only have one defender of this pawn, and I don't have any defenders on this pawn. They've got 2 attackers, so they could win both of these pawns in the next move. I castle. I don't care about either of these pawns. I castle. If they take here, I think I have queen f4. Is a devastating move. It just wins the knight. Because the knight's pinned to the queen, I've just added another attacker onto it. They can go bishop c5, but I think then knight a4 wins the piece that way. And that's really, really nice. Apparently, you give up the piece like this, which is cool. It's just cool. That's all I have to say about that. And the other tactic is that if they go for this one, rook fb1. No, not rook fb1. You go there first, threatening the fork. If they try to save this, then rook fb1, and the queen is now trapped. Basically, that's our other threat. And you will see this hangs for ages. I wouldn't say hangs because it's a tactic and it doesn't work tactically, and our opponent saw that. But yeah, this is on the board for ages. Rook c8. I don't really know what that's doing. I guess threatening the c pawn. But I didn't really care. I kept it going. I went a6. I was afraid of, say if we did a random move, I was afraid of knight b4. That looks annoying with my bishop. Apparently you can get out of it, but it's not something I really, really want. So I just played a3 to avoid that. And again, it's not hanging anything. It's not hanging anything at all because the rook's covering the pawn. And this is still the same tactic as well. They go a6. Now, potentially this causes some problems because I no longer have knight b5. Oh, that was the point of the rook coming here, by the way, to stop the threat of the fork. I no longer have knight b5. So I go knight e2, and this still works because our bishop is covering the b5 square. This pawn's covering the b4 escape square, and the knight's covering c3 still. So if they do take this, again, it's still going to be trapping the queen. Really, really nice. And then they go bishop e7, and again, I just leave it. I go on the counterattack with queen g3. I don't know if queen g3 was the right move. Apparently not. Apparently you actually do lock it up with c3 at this point. But I wanted to be a bit more attacking because this was a very... Other than these very basic tactics, I wouldn't say they're quite complicated tactics. Other than these two tactics, we'll just say. We'll leave it at that. Not much has actually happened. We're only on move 13 here. They play g6. I thought knight h5 was the best move here. Apparently that's fine. I thought about going queen g4. And then g6. And you end up in a similar position, to be honest. But they went with this straight away, which I like. I thought about going bishop h6. But that left the centre very loose. So we just tied it up with c3, covering this pawn. Now this one's not hanging. This one still is up for grabs, but not the d pawn. They go knight h5. Again, it's the same position we saw earlier, kicking the queen. And I thought for a while here, queen f3 is the obvious move. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere with queen f3 though. I didn't know where to go afterwards. So I decided I thought I was being clever with queen h2. The reason I thought this is because I can play g4, I can play f4 with like a queen f2 and then start the attack that way. I thought that seemed good. The queen supporting the h5 push as well against the g pawn. So I thought I was being a bit clever here. The annoying part is queen c7. And thinking back, I probably should have just traded off here. Is a simple way to play it. I decided to go f4, which is the start of my downfall, I think. I went too far up the board too soon, and it just didn't work out for me. F4, the knight goes back. This was a really, really tricky move. I thought you could even potentially go bishop d6 here. Is really interesting with the double threat on the queen. And then after something like this, it's an interesting position for sure. they went back to g7, and I fully got caught by this. I overextended. I went g4. Apparently, this is actually the best move, but it falls to this nasty trick of h5, and apparently this is still dead even. But it's so brutal. The problem is you're letting the rook in. If they had castled, if black had castled, this would be crushing. But unfortunately, because this rook's still in the h-file, there are a lot of nasty, nasty tricks surrounding this. I went queen f2 to try and support the f-pawn. I don't really know the reasoning behind it. It is worse because the bishop comes in as well. Yeah, queen g2 is the way to play it. And then potentially take here. I saw this with a rook h4. Apparently, queen takes is not the right way to play it. You play pawn takes. And then that's even, apparently. And you can think about an f5 still. I'm not quite sure. Maybe a knight g3 as well. But we went f2, takes, and then rook h4 supported by the bishops. Really annoying because you're threatening check. Thinking back, I could have potentially let this slide with like a knight g3 to block the check. Looks interesting. We went with queen g3. A bit insane. Apparently the move is queen g2. That's insane to me. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, because then you can still go knight g3 after maybe like a g5. Okay. But we went there. And then king d7 is a really nice move. Never castled. Just goes king d7. And the threat is to get these rooks along the board. And potentially mate or swap off the rooks for the queen. Either way, it's scary. We went king g2 to potentially think about f5 with queen takes, king takes. So we're still supporting this g-pawn. And also to get these rooks on the h-file and contest the open file. The rook moves over. We contest the open file. And apparently this is still completely drawn. I thought I was losing at this point. f5's nasty. We slipped up by not pushing. I was scared of knight coming in though. Oh, knight comes in, you lose the rook. What about takes first then? Then knight comes in. Then I guess you don't really have any threats after that though. Yeah. We took. We took. And I thought after f takes, it was interesting with queen f3, potentially looking for a check on d5. I thought was interesting. Or we could just take this, although that looks scary. Takes, rook takes is interesting. Oh, but then bishop takes check. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. They took with the knight though, and then I took the knight. I thought about taking this first, but I didn't think it mattered. Then I took the rook, and I move over to f3, potentially hitting that, although also not really, but also letting the knight come to g3. I thought was an interesting move. The safer move potentially could have been king f2, but then, no, that looks sketchy. King f1 apparently, that's insane. But I guess if they ever get a check, you have knight or bishop back to g1, which looks pretty safe. And then, yeah, we walked into a pin with this one. And then here I thought I was being clever again. Turns out thinking I'm clever is my downfall. I thought I could go rook h1. Now, bear with me with this one. I thought after rook takes, queen takes, bishop takes, we had rook h7 check, where we win the queen. I forgot how knights move, and the knight can just block. So, yeah. So I just took the bishop. The correct move, by the way, is bishop f2. It's still not nice at all. Maybe like a king d6. And you can think about adding another attacker on. Potentially. Yeah, it doesn't look nice at all. There's not one bit of this that I would say, yeah, that's a good position for white. But yeah, we went into this stupid thing, and I mean, yeah, fair play, basically. We got destroyed. Our opponent did it quite nicely. There were a few tricks. I thought maybe a stalemate, but they played it cleanly, and they won in a good style. Yeah, did I show you guys the accuracy of this, by the way? Because this is insane. I got an 83.4% accuracy, and our opponent got a 95.3 in a classical game. 2350 versus 2200. That's absolutely insane. After how many moves? 42 moves, you got a 95.3. Wow. That's really, really impressive. Anyway, we're playing again tomorrow. I only have 2 games tomorrow, which is good. Hopefully, it should be a bit cooler as well. But I'm having a great time. It's a great tournament, and I hope I make up for it a bit tomorrow. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like if you liked. Please subscribe if you really liked, and I'll catch you guys all tomorrow. Bye-bye.